Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to KUCR 88.3 FM. My name is Senna Omar, and I'm here today with one of the organizers of UCR's 47th Writers Week Festival, Professor Tom Lutz. Professor Tom Lutz received his BA from the University of Massachusetts and went on to higher education, receiving his master's and PhD from Stanford University. He's a distinguished professor in the UCR Creative Writing Department and the founding editor-in-chief of the LA Review of Books. Lutz has written a plethora of books, including The Kindness of Strangers, The Natural and Cultural History of Tears, and he has appeared on the New York Times and LA Times bestseller list multiple times and received recognition for New York Times Notable Book Awards. His writing has been translated into over 12 different languages. Currently, Lutz is working on a multitude of different projects, including a nonfiction book and a new novel. So good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here with me today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day.
Absolutely. Thanks for doing this, because I'm glad to talk about Writers Week and help build a little bit of an audience for it. So
yeah,
thanks for doing this.
So what exactly is Writers Week?
Writers Week is a writers' conference, as it's called, and it's just a bunch of writers coming in and doing readings, having conversations with the audience. We've been doing it now for 47 years at Riverside, so it's one of the longest running literary events in the country, certainly in the Southland, and it started small, with 5 or 6 or 8 people each year, and it's been growing a bit. And now with Allison Edel Hedge-Koch as one of the co-directors, I'm really more or less Allison's assistant at this point. Although she gives me the co-director title, she does the majority of the work, and she has built it over the last several years into a much bigger. There's almost 50 writers this year. Do a much bigger thing. She's come up with more funding for it from a variety of sources, from a variety of partners, and so it's become now panels of 3 writers at a time. It runs from Monday through Friday, although we have a couple of film people coming on Saturday, and a couple of people, actually very interesting people, Justin Torres and George M. Johnson, who are coming in April, or I think April for George M. Johnson, and we're not exactly sure, but hopefully April for Justin as well, because they had personal things that they needed to deal with and couldn't make their original schedule. But so it's a week, except for a couple of outliers, and during that week, it's every afternoon and evening there are panels with different writers, some among the best known writers in the world, and some people who are just publishing their first book.
Wow, that's very interesting. I love to hear that this event is growing every year, that it keeps getting put on. Why do you think that Writers Week is an important event?
Well, it's important for a number of reasons, and it's important for writers. People say that it's never been easier to publish a book. You and I could go home this afternoon and publish a book if we wanted to, right? We could you could put it up on Amazon and it would be for sale tomorrow, right? So it's never been easier to publish a book. It's never been harder to get a book noticed. Because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of books being published every year, millions of books being published every year in the United States. And so how do you get an audience for the book that you've just published? And because a lot of the book reviews that used to exist, every newspaper used to have a lot of book reviews. Now most newspapers have none, and even the LA Times has gone from having an entire book review section to having a single page on Sundays, or a couple of pages in another section. The book review world is shrinking, though, so you can't find books there. There's how does a book get noticed? And one way it happens is that you have live events, and you get readers to come out and hear people that they might not have heard otherwise, and find out about books that they might not have otherwise find. So it's important for writers as a way to connect with their audience.
You were one of the founding members of Writers Week, right?
No. It's 47 years, so that's beyond my career. I took it over maybe 15 years ago, 12 or 15 years ago. But it's important for young writers. And Rigoberto Gonzalez, who's one of our Lifetime Achievement Award winners this year, says that he discovered the fact that writing was an actual way to live from Writers Week. Mm-hmm. Before that, he'd been an English major here at UC Riverside, and he every writer he ever encountered had a birth date and a death date. And he didn't realize that there were living writers and that they were actually writing them and around him, and that he could meet them and he could become one, right? And then he went on to write 20 books, become a very important. He's now editing the Library of America's book of Latino writers. He's a force in the world of letters. He's got books of poetry, books of fiction, books of nonfiction. He's professor, distinguished professor at Rutgers University. So he's kind of come full circle, and he's back at Writers Week again. But Writers Week is where he met his first living writers. And I think for a lot of people at UCR, that's true. Mm-hmm. For a lot of students, undergrads students, and even the graduate students often are kind of having close one-on-one relationships with writers for the first time at Writers Week, beyond the faculty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems like a wonderful opportunity to get to see a whole nother career path, or just opportunities when it comes to writing and publishing for students and faculty at UCR. You said you've been working on this event for a very long time. What mm-hmm. are you most looking forward to this year in Writers Week?
This year, I do have a soft spot for the Lifetime Achievement Award evening. We've been doing this for 9 years now. Sometimes just one person gets the award. The first couple were for John Recchi and Ngugi wa Thiong'o, mostly writers from this area or have a connection to this area. Although Margaret Atwood, we gave it to one year, who's a Canadian writer, and one year we had we called it Laureate Palooza, because it was 3 poet laureates. Juan Felipe Herrera, who had been, he was already retired, but he had been on the faculty here, and the first Latino poet laureate, Rita Dove, first Black woman to be poet laureate, and Joy Harjo, the first Native American indigenous person to be poet laureate, and so to kind of be with people like that, kind of be able to celebrate their careers. Mm-hmm. I always find that very satisfying and fun, partly because I'm looking at the way careers mm-hmm. move over time in my own case, as well as in these cases. And then, of course, all of the young people that are just starting out. We have 3 of our former students. Actually, more than 3, but we have a number of our former students coming and reading because they have new books coming out. Minda Honey, Vicky Vertiz, Tanya Frank. There are people who I've known for many, many years, like Maceo Montoya, who runs Wizache, the journal now. Matthew Shinoda, great poet. Tess Taylor, Lisa Teasley. Some of these people are kind of old friends, and mm-hmm. to kind of have them come through again is wonderful.
Yeah, that sounds like a wonderful event that you're putting on here. I want to go myself now.
Well, you should.
I will be there, honestly.
Yeah,
you mentioned the Lifetime Achievement Award. Can
mm-hmm.
you give us a little bit more information about that and what would constitute somebody to win that award? Yeah,
we've this is an award that we talk about at LA Review of Books, where I wear 2 different hats on this award. At LA Review of Books and UCR decide who the award should go to each year. One of the things that we're very conscious of here is that we're not in New York, right? And mm-hmm. literary culture is very, very much centered in New York. And New York, we know that over time there have been great writers that live in the greater Los Angeles area, in Southern California, and who just don't get the respect they deserve because they're not going to all the literary parties in New York, mm-hmm. and they're not getting called in for juries and this kind of thing because they're not getting seen at the cocktail parties or the dinners or right. And so they're just the kind of writers on this coast don't have the same access to the systems of literary prestige that New York is very much in control of. So LA Review of Books and this award are very focused on the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And therefore, we'd like to give the award to people that have some deep connection to this area. So even though Rigoberto Gonzalez lives now on the East Coast, he is from here, and Quincy Troop actually lives back in New York now, but he was here for many, many, many years. Taught at Irvine, and all three of our awardees this year are people that have done serious service to the literary community in various ways. Rigoberto, as I say, is editing this important anthology, but he's been a kind of activist in LGBTQIA politics and literary politics for a long time. Quincy Troop is part of the Black Arts movement and part of the Watts Writing Workshop and kind of important, and now works in a nonprofit in Harlem. He's been a kind of important activist himself, as well as, again, a guy with more than a dozen books in various genres. And Dave Eggers started 126 Valencia, which is an after-school tutoring program. He started Scholar Choice, which helps people that otherwise are not getting the right kind of counseling and help do college applications, for instance, and matching students with possible colleges and universities. And Voice of Witness, which is what it sounds like. Another nonprofit. So these are people who are not just great writers and have done a kind of lifetime's amount of great work as writers, but also are kind of active literary citizens as well. And that can be said for a lot of the people almost everybody that's won the award so far. Juan Felipe, Joy Harjo, Rita Dove, for instance, but also Ngugi, John Recchi, kind of basically the entire list. Margaret Atwood. They're important cultural figures beyond their own writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Trying to kind of create opportunities for writers or encourage writing outside of like the East Coast literary bubble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that this is your last Writers Week, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes this Writers Week special compared to other ones that you've worked on in the past?
My own nostalgia. Yeah, no. I think, each one is exciting because it's a new set of voices, right? So in each case, the new batch of people coming in, I find thrilling. So I'm not sure this one is particularly different than any of the others. It is, again, a little bit larger. There are few more writers than we had last year, which was a few more than we had the year before, and a few more. So it's getting kind of a little bit more exciting just because of its size, and therefore its diversity and variety and hopefully therefore impact. But we're excited about this list of writers. I mean, it's a kind of fun thing to do, to be able to kind of say, let's invite Joey, and then we invite Joey, and if Joey can come, we can make it happen. And so it's been a blast doing it all these years. And luckily for UCR, Allison is better at it than I was, and so it's going to continue to get better.
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. This event has been wonderful for the past couple years. You've been doing a great job. And this is kind of a harder question to answer, but okay. I know there's a lot of writers on the docket this year. Is there any one book or one writer that you're really looking forward to hearing?
Justin Torres wrote a book that is it's just a wonderful book called We the Animals, a decade ago or so. And this is now his second novel. It's just come out. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, so I was looking forward to hearing him read it. And of course he will in April. Maceo, I haven't seen since he took over Huizache. Huizache is a magazine for Latino American writers that was based in Texas, edited by Dagoberto Gilb, who was at Writers Week about 4 or 5 years ago. And he's just retired and handed it off to Maceo. So I'm interested to see Maceo again. Obviously, my students, Vicky and Minda Honey and Tanya Frank, are all with new books. It'll be fun to see them. There's not. I can't say there's a single book. Yeah. Dave Eggers has a new book, which just before we came on the air, we were talking about the state of journalism today, and Dave Eggers has a new book called The Every, which is a sequel to his own book called The Circle, which became the film with Tom Hanks. And The Every is the name of a company, which is, I don't know if it was originally Google or if it was originally Amazon. It doesn't matter. It has bought everything. So it now owns what was Google, what was Amazon, what was Microsoft, what was Twitter, what was TikTok, it owns all of them, and Meta, and so it now kind of controls the entire world of discourse, and because it's kind of measuring everybody's everything all of the time, it kind of controls the way people are living. And it was a dystopian comic novel, and one of the things that's really fun is that when you hear a writer read their own work, you sometimes realize my when I'm reading it, my flavor is not exactly right. Mm-hmm. There have been times where I've heard a writer read who I thought, well, this is good. This is good. I mean, not I haven't read. I read them and I thought, this is good. I don't understand why everybody's so excited about it. People seem to like it more than I do. And then I've heard the writer read and I realize, oh, this is so much funnier. Now that I've got this person's voice in my head reading it, I see why it's much funnier than I thought it was. And so I'm interested to hear Dave Eggers read this book. But I can say that about almost any of the writers.
Hearing kind of like they're writing in their novels from their own perspective.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's a new perspective on the reading. Yeah.
And when you listen to Audible books, sometimes the reader is so excellent and they're perfect for the book. Mm-hmm. And I had that experience with one of Dave Eggers' books, The Heroes of the Frontier, where the reader, the woman that was reading it, was such the perfect reader for that book. And I was just listening to a book on the way in here. And I'm not going to say what it was because it's a negative take, but it was the reader made the character seem so aggravating that I hated the character. I hated the book. And I don't think we were supposed to hate the character. I think it was the way the reader was reading her that was like, and just like really bratty. And I assume this is not what the writer meant.
They're kind of like ruining the integrity of the author's work.
Exactly. Know? So it's that's one of the real values of this, is to hear them interpret their own work.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. So what kind of legacy do you hope that you will leave with this event?
Oh, the event is a lot bigger than me. It's not, it's not me leaving a legacy. It's me. It's the event has its own legacy, mm-hmm. and it is its own legacy, and like anything important in this world of academia, it's not an individual doing it. This is something true for literary culture as well. We all rely on each other. We all are impacted and affected by each other. We all kind of learn from each other, and it's intellectual life, literary life, journalistic life. It's a group effort. It's almost a species effort, mm-hmm. And the legacy of an individual in the context of these things is pretty unimportant.
Yeah, that's understandable because Writers Week is this like humongous event encompassing so many different people in their writing. This is my last question for you.
Sure.
But you mentioned earlier how some of your former students are coming and showing their own books. How does it make you feel to kind of see people who were in your classes before now at this event that they probably attended while they were here at UCR? Yes. How does that make you feel?
It's great. It's always wonderful. And of course, it's part of being in a writing program. And before I was in a creative writing department, I was in an English department. So I've watched now for 40 years, I've watched my students start graduate school, do their exams, get their dissertation written, and then get their first book published. In some cases, their second book published and their third book published along the way. And now I've been here for 12 years, and students have published in those 12 years. Have published 40 or 50 books. So it's a regular occurrence. I mean, we have a great creative writing program here.
Absolutely.
So it's and therefore we have a very high success rate in getting people published, and so it never gets old seeing the success of our students. I mean, the success of my colleagues is also fun, but the success of our students, I think, for all of us, is even more pleasurable.
It's kind of like a very nice, like, full circle moment.
Absolutely. And that's why Rigoberto is such a great moment. He was a Riverside undergraduate. He went on to have this great literary life that made us all proud, and so now he's back again.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, to everyone listening, you guys should come to this year's Writers Week. It's next week, right?
Yes, it's Monday through Friday. A couple events on Saturday, but then Monday through Friday, and the schedule is up at on the UCR website. It's writersweek.ucr.edu.
Well, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thanks for doing this.
Give a little bit of information about Writers Week and why it's important. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to attending this event myself. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice
Cheers.
meeting you.